So everyone, we're going to get started. Welcome, my name's Melinda Martin and I'm the Gallery Director at Linden, and I'm here with Juliet Hanson, who is our curator. So welcome everyone, thanks for joining us on this session about the Linden Postcard Show. We're excited to be presenting another version of this exhibition. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional lands on which both Juliet and I are live streaming this event from. So I'm joining this from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Greater Kulin Nation here in Melbourne, and Juliet is joining us from the lands of the Boonwurrung people of the Greater Kulin Nation here in Melbourne, which is also where the gallery is sitting very beautifully, but we're unable to be there. So welcome from our homes to your homes as well. We're just going to cover off a couple of things in relation to some of the restrictions we're currently working with in terms of COVID protocols. So we're going to ask that everyone post their work to us. This gives us a chance to actually disinfect boxes and things when they arrive to site. It also enables us to recycle all the material, and you have to think of our staff who'll be wearing masks and gloves to do this entire process. When you do post it, we're going to ask that you actually keep a tracking number from either Sendle or Australia Post, whatever supplier you're using. It just means that if we because we're receiving over 1,000 artworks from across the country, every now and then something gets delayed, and it means we know where it is and we can be in touch and we can leave the space for the work, even if it arrives a little bit later during the installation process. So we will be in touch with anybody who hopefully doesn't hit that, and hopefully it's all very smooth sailing. As you can imagine, in the old days where we used to have people come and deliver their artworks to the gallery, there was always a big queue of people. With COVID and with the Delta variant at the moment, all it would take is one person who could potentially very unknowingly know that they've become COVID positive, and then we've got a real event of people having to go into isolation, including our team. So we're endeavouring to keep to some timelines to be able to make that happen, so that we can keep everyone safe and well, and that we can get the show up as quickly as we can. So in terms of some of the questions I can see, Juliet is going to go through a number of those things in just how to enter and some of the key issues. Our good friends at the St Kilda Post Office know that this is coming, and they know that they're going to be expecting some parcels. One of the most hilarious things is the guy who is the manager of the post office at St Kilda's first name is actually Lyndon. So it feels like it's a perfect thing for us to be sending him multiple boxes. We'll just get started, Juliet. If you want to run through just some of the entry processes. I know you can see a number of questions, and we will talk through that as we're going through this. So Juliet will share her screen and then we'll get going.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to let everybody see the website for the Linden Postcard Show. So Linden New Art has its own website, of course, lindenarts.org, but the Linden Postcard Show actually has its own website, lindenpostcardshow.com.au, and we've put the link in the chat there, near the top of the chat. I'm presuming everybody can see this now. Mel, can you see that?
I've just popped that in as well. I've just popped it in again.
Super. And can you see the Linden Postcard Show website? Is that what
Yes.
Everyone's looking at right now? Great. So everything that you would possibly need to know about entering the show can be found on this website. Every year we improve it and add things to it to make it as easy and as straightforward as possible for you to have the full information and each step of how to enter the show. Here we have some key dates, the exhibition dates running from the 4th of December, all going to plan, through to the 27th of February. Entries are open right now, and they'll be closing on the 13th of October. So here we have 3 things that you can click on straight away. The winners bit, this is last year's winners, in case you're interested to see who they were from last year. This is an exciting one, the judges and prizes. So this year's judges are going to be Joanna Bossy from Bayside City Council Art Gallery and Eric Nash, who's the director of Benalla Art Gallery. We're very lucky to have those people on board. For now, though, this is going to be the most important thing to click on. Enter the postcard show. If we go in here, there is a lot of information. So before you even begin to enter, it's important just to know some of the very key things that you will, some of the entry conditions. So as many of you will know already, one of the most important entry conditions is the size of the artwork. So artworks have to be exactly 8 by 10 inches, no smaller and no bigger. So in centimeters, that is 20.32 by 25.4 centimeters. It's very precise, and that would include any framing that you have around the work as well. So those dimensions would be the external dimensions of any framing. In previous years, people have been able to enter 4 works into the show. Last year and this year as well, the limit will be 3 artworks per person. And this is because we're actually capping the number of works coming into the show at 1,000 works. So by reducing the number of artworks that each person can enter, we ensure that more people are able to be involved still, despite that cap. And the reason for us limiting it at 1,000 artworks is because, you know, everything is coming in the mail, and we have we're working usually with half the team at the moment because of the split team due to COVID, of course. So to manage many more than 1,000 artworks is a bit much for a smaller group of us. Another important thing that is different to previous years, but the same as last year, is that all works on paper will need to be framed and behind perspex. And the reason for that is that if we have to do a major clean of the site, if the site gets, you know, pinged as being a hotspot for COVID, then we will have to do a big clean, and it's not safe for works on paper to be just freely hanging on the walls. They would end up being damaged with a clean like that. Everything will have to be posted in, as you know, as Mel mentioned. And another important thing is that everything has to be able to be hung on the wall. So no sculptural works and no video works either. Having said that, the works can have a sculptural aspect to them in that they can stick out from the wall, but the maximum they can stick out is 10 centimeters. Any more than 10 centimeters and it starts to become a hazard for visitors. And for the work itself, of course, if it gets knocked accidentally. In thinking about entry fees, there are entry fees. I think that was one of the questions that popped up in the chat there. So to enter 1 work into the show is $44, 2 works $55, and 3 works $66. So I might jump in and show you further down. If you scroll down in the Enter the Postcard Show bit, there's a lot more information here on how to enter. Click through there and I'll let you have a look. Sorry, laptop's trying its best. So here you can see there are detailed instructions as to how to frame your work, pack your work, lots of the things I was just talking through. Very step-by-step instructions in here as to how you can enter online, because all entries do have to be online. We can't do them over the phone. You have to use this system. But we've made some video tutorials on how to do that. So the lindenpostcardshow.com.au website is where I would recommend you go first of all to find out all of this information as to how to enter. But once it comes to actually entering your work into the show, you have to go to the Gallery 247 website, and that is also in the chat as well. So the videos I'm going to show you now are actually recordings of me using the Gallery 247 website to enter works into the show. The first thing you have to do is create a profile on Gallery 247. And if you've entered the Linden Postcard show, I think since 2014, you will already have a profile on Gallery 247. If you've forgotten the password, or I believe there is a process you can go through to get your password back. So if you do not already have a profile on Gallery 247, this is how you make one. Let me just take that back. I think we missed the first bit because I was a bit slow to expand it. Sorry. Here we are. Go back to the beginning. You click on register. You just have to fill in your name, surname, email. This is where you create your password, which you do have to remember to get back in again. So whatever that password is, make sure you write it down at this point. You register yourself as an artist, and then I guess you confirm that you are a human by typing in those letters, and you register yourself. And once you do that, you'll receive an email from Gallery 247 to confirm that you've registered, and that will send you a link to go back into the system, because once you've registered for a profile, you then have to populate your profile with some very important information that we need. So you'll have to log in using the password that you created when you registered. Log in. And it will take you through to here. Then click on My Profile, and you can begin putting in the important information. So here you can see this is me, this is my address. I think it's going to pop in a phone number there. It's great if you can provide a second email. There's a lot of reasons why we might need to contact you throughout the show, but one of the main reasons that you would be putting your address in here is, of course, at the end of the exhibition, we may need to post some of your works back to you if they haven't sold. So it's also important as well to log back in and update those details if you do move house during the course of the show, because whatever address is in there, that's the address that the artworks will be sent back to. So Mel, I might pause this here because I know you were going to talk through the importance of a statement by supplier forms and GST.
It's an exciting topic. I know you'll all be thrilled to learn about this. So there are a number of options. So some artists are artists who have their own ABN, and they might be a professional artist who's registered for GST. Some artists may have an ABN but are not registered for GST. So in that little box where you see GST category, there'll be professional artist registered for GST, professional artist with no GST, that's fine. And then you'll have another pop down, which is what you'll see on the screen, which is hobby artist. That means that you are not making your full-time living from your art practice. This might be a little bit of a side hustle or a hobby that you do. You need to then fill in a statement by supplier form. And the reason we ask you to do that is that it means that if we sell your work, if we don't have a completed statement by supplier form, we have to get in touch to get you to complete one. Otherwise, we're really required to retain 47% of the sale and send that to the tax office, which for me, that is heartbreaking. And I never want to do it. So we spend a lot of time trying to get the statement by supplier form. So it's really important. If you are a hobby artist, fill out the statement by supplier form, pop it in the box that you send to us with your artwork, and then we've got everything there that we need, and it means that we can, get through it. The other thing on this screen is also bank account details. We pay everybody directly into their bank account, so it's really important that you have your correct bank account details, which includes the name of your bank account. Some people have joint bank accounts. Some people might enter the prize as their art name and as a pseudonym rather than their actual name, and that is fine too. We also need your BSB number and your account number and the title of the bank, just so that we can actually pay you directly. That is one of the things that we find is really important, and often we have to spend a lot of time, and the team has to spend a lot of time to get those details from somebody. And we like to try and sell as many artworks as we possibly can and pay artists as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Mel. So yes, it's great if you're able to download the statement by supplier form and then include that in your box when you post the artworks to us. That's ideal. Then we don't have to chase it up and can pay you as quickly as possible. So I'll continue with this video, just showing what that looks like on the screen when you're in there. So if you're a hobby artist, perhaps you wouldn't be entering in your ABN, but if you select professional artist, you can pop that in there. Anything with a red asterisk next to it, like this, you do have to fill in those fields in order to continue. Yeah. Update. And then your profile is nearly complete. But the next thing that you need to do, which is perhaps the more exciting bit, is add artworks to your profile. And there are some very important stages in here in order for your artworks to be accepted into the system. So I'll highlight some of those as we move through. So here you have to either select new painting, or there is a second button. If your work is a photograph or a print, you're going to click this one instead of the painting button. And that's important when you get taken through to the next bit where you have to enter in your medium details. Different details come up depending on which of those black buttons you've clicked. So here we are, go through. This is where you enter the price of your work. And with the price, it's important to consider that Lyndon does take 30% plus GST commission on all sales. So bear that in mind when you're pricing the work. And this next bit, where the height and the width are entered in, is really, really vital. And I know it seems perhaps a little strange that you would have to be so precise at this point, but if you miss the 0.4 or the 2 off either of these bits, it won't work. It won't let you enter into the show. I would say 90% of the time when people are calling up because they're having a problem and the system isn't accepting their works, it's because these details have not been entered in correctly at this point. That's really important. Once you've popped those in, it will prompt you to upload an image of your work. Now, it is possible to go ahead and enter the show without uploading an image straight away. You can choose to upload an image later, because it may be that at this point you haven't actually finished the work, but you know that you would like to enter it and you have the other details ready. So that's possible, but it is very important that you do in fact enter an image of the work at some point, particularly because since last year, and we'll be doing the same again this year, we're going to be selling the works online. So it makes it very important to have an image of the work if you'd like your work to be sold through the online sales platform. So this is just showing you for a second time the bits that you have to fill in for each artwork. Click through, you choose your file. We upload this. Now, Just because your images are in your profile, that doesn't mean that they're entered into the show yet. The great thing about Gallery 247 is that it allows you to enter artworks into many different art prizes. So if you are going to enter works into different prizes, you still upload the works in the same way to your profile, and then you go to this final step of actually selecting which of the works you want to enter into the Lyndon Postcard Show. I'm just going to expand that. So it would presume that you've logged back into your profile. You might still be in there if you're doing this all in one hit. You have to scroll down below your artwork listings and click on Lyndon Postcard Show. It will then bring up some important information that we've already talked about, and it will allow you to click these checkboxes on whichever of the works you want to enter into the show, with a maximum of 3, of course, and you have to submit them. And this will take you through to the bit where you pay your entry fees. So until you've done this and paid the entry fee, you're not in the show. So it's a vital step along the way. And so once you've completed this bit and you've entered them into the show, Gallery 247 will then send you another email confirming that the works are in the show, and they'll actually send you a label at this point. And I just have to let you know that that is in fact not the label that we would like you to adhere to the back of the work. You can virtually ignore the labels that are attached to this acceptance email, because once the entry deadline has passed, you will be sent another email from Gallery 247 with the correct labels attached. And those labels will have your unique artwork number on them for the postcard show. And those numbers don't get assigned to your works until after the entry deadline, when the system gets closed off. Mel, I think you might have an artwork. If I stop sharing my screen now, you can show people what those labels look like. So it's a very important thing.
So everybody, I'm just going to show you an artwork that I bought, and I'm going to tip it that way. It's probably in reverse, but it just shows you that the actual label says you're in the Lyndon Postcard Show, and it's the year that you're entering. So it would be the 2021 exhibition. And then it has your artist name, the title of the work, the kind of medium, the price, the dimensions, and it has an artist number and an artwork number. And that's the thing that enables us to make sure that we've received the correct work. It means that for some artists who might be entering multiple works, it gives us a chance to make sure that everyone's put the right label on the back of the work, because we sell the works both online and in the gallery space. It's one of those very simple things that at the last minute you can slightly accidentally put the wrong label on the wrong work. It also means that that's why it's really vitally important that you put a photograph of your work up, and it can just be a little iPhone shot, can be perfect, of your work, and it just means that we're able to match the image with the work. And if we're not sure, it's a bit too confusing, we reach out to you to just double check it so that we make sure that we've got the right details, because if works have different prices and things on it, it can all become a really bad thing as it goes through the entire system, for us to try and unpick at and make sure that we've sold the work for the correct price, and it's the right work, and it is the thing that the buyer wants, and that we're sending back, any works that have not been sold. But last year we, sold an incredible amount of work. We sold $75,000 worth of work from the exhibition, which was an incredible result. So we're really hoping that this year will also be such a warm response in terms of doing it. Julia, I've got a couple of questions that I want to just go through. One of them, we've already talked about framing. We've talked about the size restrictions. And I've got one question from Darrell, which is about a 3D work that is oval in shape. If it's measuring 8 by 10 at the widest points, are we happy for that to happen?
Generally, we would like you to enter rectangular works. There is a slight leniency for, I suppose, perhaps slightly curved edges, but once we start entering into things where the dimensions of it are primarily not the dimensions that we would like, it really starts looking quite odd on the wall. So I would probably say no to oval works, just because the dimensions really, people then might get into all kinds of different ways of trying to meet these dimensions. And really, if the majority of the work is not meeting those requirements, I would say no.
I hope that answers your question. Diana's also asked a question just about tips on pricing. I've just put in the chat that NAVA, the National Association of Visual Arts, has a really great fact sheet about pricing artworks. But I've also just noted, just to let people know, that the kind of average prices are probably, the lowest is about $50 and it goes up to about $2,500. But there's a lot of work in that kind of $150 to $250 price range. So I hope that gives people a kind of sense of their work. If you have a look on some of the previous exhibitions on the Linden Postcard website, you'll be able to see some of those details, and that should give you, and I think that was Diana's question, I think that should give you a little bit of assistance in terms of helping you. How do I send in my 3D work if it's in an acrylic frame? In terms of everything needs to be packed really securely and posted to us. So it is just a matter of us having a conversation with you. So I think, Judith, you've just asked that question. I have put in the chat in a couple of points, if people have got very specific questions about their work, sometimes it's easier for us if you can take a photo of what you've made and we can have a look at it and then we can have a chat with you individually rather than kind of giving global things. So Judith, I will put in response to your question Juliet's email address and she can take that offline and have a kind of conversation with you. I've just had a couple of other questions in the Q&A as well, so I'm just keeping an eye on both of them.
Right, yes.
Margaret's just asked a question about using clay boards in terms of that being the kind of backing of the work, and I've said, look, it is really possible as long as it's the right size. That work can actually be quite fragile to post to us, so it's really making sure that you feel really confident that it can be packed really securely. And we have received works in the last exhibition that were made like this, and Margaret, they were really packed in kind of like into a foam base, so the artists had kind of cut out a piece of foam, either quite sort of squishy foam from Clark rubber, or they'd used polystyrene and kind of sat their work in it, so it really was very secure. Another way to do it is to use expanding foam. This is often what art organisations do, or if they're packing like glasswork, for example, you can put a piece, you can like have your box set up, put some expanding foam into the bottom of it, put a piece of plastic, so like a garbage bag, over the top of it. Then you can sink the work into it, don't let it hit the bottom, and then you can put another sort of layer of the top, and it's kind of really sandwiched very securely in. So that might be a way of getting your work to us in a really safe way. Warren has and Margaret's just asked a question that the clay boards are a little bit wider. They can actually be 10 centimetres in depth is the maximum that will go up to, Margaret. So hopefully that will answer your question. Warren's asked a question as well about like, how do we decide who gets in? Say if, we get 334 artists and they submit 3 works and we're at 1,002 pieces. Well, we do let that slide in. But as I said to Warren in my response, we do actually keep an eye on the numbers. And if you follow our social media through Instagram or Facebook, you'll often be seeing as it gets closer towards the end of the date that we're saying to people, look, there are this many spots left. I think last year we hung 1,046 works all up. So there were people who did get in.
Yes, I think the last night just before we closed off the system and realized that yeah, it was too late. So
And
yeah.
then, it is also important to really be making sure that you're meeting the timeline deadline. So we had some artists who were in different parts of the country who missed out because they left their run too late. So really get in early and upload it. So we do endeavour to show every work that we receive. The only reasons we wouldn't show a work is, of course, if something arrived damaged, we'd be talking to the artist about, like, it has arrived damaged, what would you like to do? We also have some, it's a family friendly show. So there are elements in terms of making sure that artworks don't breach copyright infringement of another artist's work, for example. So we would be talking to an artist where we saw that happening, but also that there, not issues in relation to sort of racial denigration or gender or any of those kind of issues. We also have conversations with artists if we believe, for example, that an artist might be using First Nations imagery in their work, and in fact they do not come from a First Nations background, and we will politely ask for that work to be withdrawn as well, because we adhere to those protocols in terms of representing and ensuring that First Nations people their imagery and their iconography is protected. So that is one issue. Warren has also just asked a question in terms of one question that was around just access for people who might come from the deaf and disabled community. We do have a number of artists who do show from those backgrounds in the show. We always sometimes will work with them one-on-one to upload information. Also, we have worked with a number of groups who run workshops and classes for people from that community. We're also just working on a very simple guide in large format print as well that'll be up by the end of next week. We've just got a staff member working on that at the moment to get that up, so that will help people. But Warren, if you've got a particular issue or concern, just reach out to us and we're happy to do a session for you and your friends. If that makes it easier to talk through, we can do something that's fairly live and share a screen to make it more accessible. How does everyone collect their work is a question.
Nobody's collecting their work
at the end of the exhibition.
At the end of the exhibition, we me and the team very, very carefully pack everything back up into the boxes, and everything either gets posted to buyers or back to the artists. Yeah, just broadly as well on packing your works to send to us. This may be an obvious thing to say, but just generally it is best to use a box to send works. Occasionally people have chosen to send things in more kind of bendy, but still padded, but not, not hard envelopes and things like that. That just doesn't tend to be very good for the work. So I would recommend using a box, and also to take into consideration that you need to pack your work completely around every side and edge of it, because the boxes will not stay the same way up the whole time that they're with Australia Post. Just bearing that in mind, and it can be a good idea just to cover your work with some tissue as well, so that it doesn't get caught in any other packing materials that you might use. And because of the scale of the exhibition, we are encouraging people to think environmentally when they're packing the works as well. So maybe reuse things that have come to you in the mail packed, so that you're at least maybe reusing some of those materials, or using things that can be recycled, like paper and cardboard and things like that. Really, if you've got tissue around your work, screwed up balls of newspaper that can be recycled can be quite effective in really just securing it within a box. And
I've just had a couple of quick questions. One is about if a work is a oil painting or an acrylic work on canvas, for example, or an acrylic work, for example, on board. No, you don't need to frame that. And I've actually got an example of a artwork that's made on board that is the correct size. So I'll just go and grab that off the wall in my house and come back and show you what it looks like on the back. Because, works that are like that, they don't need to be framed. We can actually hang them from the edge of a stretcher frame, or we can hang them from the edge of the work. So just hang on a second and I'll get an example to show everybody. There might be another question.
Yes, I can see, Margaret, I think you were asking about the clay boards being maybe 2 millimeters more than the 8 inches. 2 millimeters is an acceptable discrepancy in size. We are very precise about the size. Any more than 4 millimeters out in any direction, and it won't be accepted in, but 2 is okay.
So this is just a work on board. So I'll just show you the back of it. So literally this is exactly 8 by 10. So one of the reasons we've chosen these sizes is that art materials are still made in the old system of inches. So it means that works on paper come in that standard size, things like this, and also canvas is also in this size as well. So if you're making a work on canvas, for example, it will have the stretcher bars on the back and we will just hang from those stretcher bars, or a piece of wire off a D-ring, and I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. But again, also if it is a work on board and these come in the perfect size, if that's what you want to do, you can see that we just literally we put nails into the back and hang off that, which is really useful. And if I show you this at the work at the back, you can see that this has a D-ring, which is this little triangle bit that is screwed in and wire. That is really secure for us to hang the work on. Every now and then we get string with tape. Let me just tell you, that falls off the wall, and that is not an acceptable kind of thing. You've got to imagine that we're dealing with a lot of work in that space.
It may seem like the tape is very, very secure when you first put it on, but after it's been displayed for, even just a few weeks, but the show goes for many months, as you know, and with the changing in the temperature, and it always fails.
Yeah, and the other problem that happens is that then if it falls off the wall, it will actually maybe take and damage some other works as well as it falls off the wall as well. So that can be another issue. Millie has just popped in a question in the Q&A that we've already answered. So Millie, what I'll do is I'm going to respond to you with an email address and you can answer, we'll respond to you and take that offline rather than doing that. I'm just not sure if we've got any other questions in the chat.
I can see one from Judith here asking if they can send it with a courier if it's fragile, and that's fine. Yes, there's a delivery period of 2 weeks, so at any point, but it would have to obviously be within gallery opening hours. I'm presuming that we can be there at that time, but no, a courier is completely fine. Yeah, could be a good idea for fragile work.
Yes, Nirvana, if you haven't painted it yet, it is one of those things that that you can enter, and then you can go back in and edit and upload images and the title of the work and all those kind of things. Rajiv has just asked me a question that he lives right across the street from the gallery. And he wants to, and he needs to post it. Yes, we do. If we had every person who lives around us in St Kilda form a queue to drop off artwork, we could potentially have a situation where people are really ill. And the issue that we have is because we have to work in a split team at the moment, we're really trying to make sure that we have no impact on installing the show and also installing the thing. And I don't think that anyone would come to the gallery being COVID positive, but they may have been exposed and then put everyone at risk, and that delays the whole show. So we're really asking everyone to have their work delivered to us. I know it seems a little bit arbitrary and unfair, but it really is about protecting the whole of the organisation and the team. We were hoping that, this wouldn't happen at this time for this show, but we're really trying to do everything that we can. And so, Judith, yes, you can register with Gallery 247. If you haven't finished the work, you can even pay for your entries now if you want to enter 3 works, for example. One of the issues that you will have is if suddenly you decide you've had all this creative time and you want to actually be able to make another work, if you've already only entered 2 and then you go back to entering a third, it will charge you the original price. If that happens, just get in contact with us and we'll sort that bit out for you, but you can do all that at the moment. I hope that's answered. Rajiv, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly and I've answered that for you. And Judith, I've answered that kind of question. I'm not sure if there's any other questions in the chat, Juliet.
I can't see any. No. I would probably encourage people to try and decide how many works that you want to enter before going ahead and going through the payment system. It is possible to add an extra one in, but it's probably more straightforward to make that choice before you do go through the process. And yes, if you know that you're going to make 2 works, but you really don't know what they're going to be, you can go in and sort of almost make placeholder things in the system. You don't have to enter an image straight away. It'll allow you to make the payment, the entry fee, and enter the show, and then you can log back into your profile and change any details you want before the deadline. As long as it's before the deadline, because you can't change those details after the deadline.
I've just had another question from another artist who is also someone who comes from the disabled community, and I've just said to her that we're going to have a special guide that is in big print and things like that, which makes it easier and for people to use. And we'll send that out if Judith gets in contact with us as soon as we've received it. I know there's a couple of other people who've asked the same question. Of course, if anyone has any difficulty and they need some help, they can give the gallery a call or they can send us an email and we'll make a time to have a conversation and have a chat. If we've got a group of people who really need some help, we can do another session and bring people together to be able to do that. And I think we've just had another question from someone in the chat. Juliet, what's that?
Yes, it is. They would like to be sent a photograph of the wall that their work is eventually hung on. They're in Queensland and they'd like to put it on Instagram to promote it. That's certainly something I'd be happy to provide. We produce an e-catalogue that appears on our website, and we do endeavour to include most of the walls in the exhibition installation photographs of, to cover the whole show. But really, if you could just get in touch with me, I can make sure I can send you happy to send you a snap of the wall where your work is displayed. It's really great if people can put that on social media for us.
And Nirvana, we also are doing a 360-degree virtual exhibition tour of the show as well. So that will happen sort of a couple of weeks after we open it, because it takes a little while for us to produce that in-house. And then we're able to share that, and you'll be able to have especially if you are in Queensland, have a look at the exhibition to do the work. So that is all possible. And of course, if there are any questions that people and Judith has asked a question about using fishing wire with special decorating clips on the back, please know that is something that does tend to fall apart. We really prefer to use wire and a hook, or to use a piece of canvas that doesn't need any of those kind of things, or a board that I showed before. They make it a little bit easier if that's something, but you can send us a picture of what you have in mind and we'll be able to respond accordingly. If there are any other questions, Julia and I might hang around for a little more if anyone have any questions, but I know that we're getting close to sort of some of the time that we said we would spend. And of course, the team at Lyndon is very able and happy to respond to things. You can send emails to gallery@lyndonarts.org, or you can send an email to Juliet, the curator, and one of the team. Sometimes Juliet's really busy and she'll send it to a team member to respond, and they'll either send you an email with some details or respond to your questions. We'll do everything as quickly as we can. We're really hoping that we can stick to all the deadlines without any change. I know last year, I think we changed things 3 or 4 times. And we really appreciate everyone's enthusiasm for the exhibition. And we really do hope that we get to put on another really exciting exhibition and have everyone be able to come out and support it again, because there was so many lovely feedback from people who were so excited that the show was back on. So it'll be really nice to show the next iteration of the exhibition, which is, I think we're in 31 this year.
That's right, 31.
So thanks everybody for your time. Look after yourselves, and do be in touch if you've got any questions, and we will respond to you as quickly as we can to be able to help you. And we look forward to seeing all your little creative adventures that come out of it. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your enthusiasm. It's great. Postcard show is always so much fun, and even though we've got to do things a little bit differently at this time, it's fantastic that it can all still go ahead.
So there's just a couple of other questions. I'll jump in and respond to those questions now. So they're there. We will put up this recording probably next week, because it'll need a little bit of editing from my stumbles and bloopers. So I think there were requests for bloopers. We will share that with everyone as well. And again, just to remind people that we will be doing another session a couple of weeks out from the closure of the exhibition, and that might be in another time to sort of jump in when you might, and we'll make that more of a Q&A kind of thing where we respond to everyone's questions at that time, because often that's where it's getting to the crunch time in terms of being able to finish work and get things to us. We're really conscious that for some people getting into studios is a bit tricky at the moment, or working from home and getting materials can be a bit tricky. So we wanted to open the show as early as we could to get the work, so people had enough time to make the work, and we'll hopefully be back in touch and be able to be doing a great opening very soon in December. So hopefully. So thanks everybody. I'm just going to respond to a couple of quick questions in the Q&A and the chat.